Hello, we're going to take a few moments here to step through how to create successful metrics that represent the value of an automation or insight-based project. The reason we're taking a couple moments to do this, and you're welcome to jump ahead to the bottom and see what some of these metrics are, but it's really important to understand the context and how to use them. When we look at the number one, number two, and number three reasons that projects centered around automation and insight and intelligence technologies don't get continued reinvestment or down levels of investment in the coming years is because there's actually a disconnect in between the business and the technology sides of the organizations in terms of how they're looking to deploy these technologies. And more specifically, it's the disconnect in between understanding what the outcome is and how you're actually being measured relative to the investment that was made for that. And we're going to take a little bit of a look at that. Now, I don't think that there's anyone inside of any organization that doesn't believe that more automation is better, where it's appropriate to help you be more efficient and make things run better, run faster, and with less friction, et cetera, and also give you greater insight into that. That's not a question of that. It's really about, well, how do you value and validate what you're actually looking for inside of an organization? And when you start to unpack these numbers here, some interesting things start to emerge. We see this certainly within some of our own projects that didn't have the right calibration at kind of the top level when you go into them. But we also see that in other projects of ours where they've gone extraordinarily well, and the investment goes up by a multiple at the end of the year here. One of the kind of core fundamentals is that everyone recognizes that um, tying that automation that you're trying to achieve to a particular business or an operational outcome is absolutely critical for the success of it. It's not just enough to say, oh, we have a manual process, or we have a process that has 10 steps in it and six of them are manual, and we can automate those and flow at 50% higher rate of efficiency, and then say, okay, at the end of that, it's going to be declared a success. It may be successful in terms of saying you made it run faster, but you actually didn't realize or articulate any value that you unlocked inside of the enterprise. And so what happens is that the budget for these next generation projects ends up getting reallocated away from it because you actually weren't able to demonstrate kind of how you were able to achieve a benefit of that. Now, some of that benefit is articulated at the beginning of a project, either in terms of reduction of the amount of resources that are needed, the amount of things that you can do faster in a less amount of time, et cetera. And there certainly is value in those kind of hero metrics, and we'll take a look at some of those and how those get used inside our project as well. But kind of the core issue is that, and when it comes to automation projects, a number of the technologies that are used out there are highly localized. So they're within a very specific, technology or, system domain or process domain that doesn't span the enterprise horizontally, right? And so you're getting an automation, which is in a lot of cases really a, kind of a workaround for the way the technologies actually should work. And so you're kind of gap filling there, but it's not resulting in a um, reduction either in the amount of resources you need to run that process, or technology costs are not being offset by it. In fact, it's adding more into it. And so the problem is that at its essence, the capacity of what you're looking for is not being clearly articulated nor measured. So, and kind of one of the other sources of this is often when you start out with projects, you look at hero metrics, and certainly we have these inside Put It Forward as well when we're looking at the ROIs or the case studies of other customers that have gone through that, and there's some great metrics. One of the core issues where we've seen where people run into trouble is where they build a business case off of metrics from someone else's project, right? Whether that's a reduction in cost, new revenue that was created, new efficiencies that were brought in, reduction in the amount of resources or people that you need on a particular project, and so on. And those are valid metrics and outcomes, and they tell a very positive story. The issue is that they represent somebody else's business environment or operating environment, and it may be nuanced in how they do it, and they may be implementing it differently, and their issues are slightly off center from where you are, which results in an unclear return, and also more sin is an unclear understanding of what you're trying to do. And that's where a lot of projects kind of ultimately break down, is that there wasn't a clear understanding of how the automation technology was going to relate to it. So the point here is that you have to tell a slightly different story when you're looking at automation metrics. Often they represent change over time, not a one-time event. If it's a one-time event, yes, you should be very clear. You spend some capital, you get an investment into it, you get a return, and then you harvest that return once, and maybe continuously if it's part of an ongoing process and so on. But it doesn't represent the true capacity of what's actually being unlocked inside of your organization. And this is where we've seen organizations get a lot more successful with their automation technologies when they spend time upfront understanding where they are unlocking value inside of their organization. So it's one thing to say, "Oh, we're going to be able to, do the amount of the work of 10 people with 5 people." And there certainly is a return on that, either in terms of how you express that, either in terms of cost saves or the amount of people that you need, et cetera. But it's another thing to express that in terms of the capacity that you now unlock inside of your organization. So really what you're doing here in these scenarios is that you're adding the capacity to do a higher quality of work, or be able to focus on more things with the same amount of people, et cetera. And those are the kind of the metrics that, we find that organizations, when they focus on those first, they can start to measure those over time and be able to turn those into KPIs that you can use to manage and continuously refine your business. Because once you make a change in your process, there's always going to be other changes that come down the road. New systems come online, new technologies change, new products, new services you may be offering that will come in and ultimately disrupt the efficiency that you've introduced into it. And so you need to actually kind of look at it through a lens of, well, what's changed over time, and what's the capacity that we're introducing into this, so that you can start to say, okay, well, when we introduce a new automation technology or a change into the automation, we'll be able to actually track how that's moving the impact on the overall organization. Now, with input of forward, these are examples of ones that just happen to be focused around revenue. There's a number of other KPIs that we've uncovered inside of our organization that, if you spend some time at, we're happy to share with you and actually kind of how to surface them. The point here is that you can use these style and these types of metrics to help articulate the value of the automation plus the insights plus the analytics, et cetera, or the integrations, depending on what your scenario is, at a much more horizontal level that allow you to manage and continuously chart the return on that over time and give you the benchmarks, either in the form of KPIs or other statistics that you can use to measure that change. I hope this has been helpful, and you're welcome to take these and use these inside of your organization at any time. Thank you for your time and attention.